All right, so I'm gonna pull up everyone's the list of people. Okay, great. Hello, Carrie. Yay, we got everyone. We got iPad, which I think is mom. Yay. Well, welcome everyone. It is not yet officially fall. Fall usually falls either on my birthday or the day before. It's always September 22nd or 23rd, and I think this year it's the 22nd. Oh, I'm just gonna, there we go. Um, but it feels like we just like shifted a corner and now we're actually in, at least it feels like fall. But I love fall. So I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling like this like infusion of fresh energy. I loved the first day of school. My mom can attest. I used to cry when I was like, 3 or 4, and my sisters got to go and I couldn't. So I have never lost that nerdy school vibe. So, but let's get going. I just want to make sure that I am centered here, and we'll do a little bit of activation. We're going to go into some swimming dragon movements. Do what feels good for you. If you had an injury or had an injury, we're going to be doing some shoulder stuff, Jill, mom, some hip stuff. So just do what feels right for you and just kind of go easy. This is all about no pain, no pain. So there should be no pain. So if you're feeling pain anywhere, it's an indication that you need to just kind of back off a little bit, and you can always just come back to your breath, come back to a gentle flow. And with that, let us get going. Let's start with some breath work. So let's start with one hand on the chest and one hand on the lower abdomen. Feel your feet on the ground. So make sure you want a nice even stance so you feel really rooted and grounded. So just look down, see if you're pressing into the floor with all 4 corners of your feet. So pinky toe, big toe, and then both sides of your heels, and just feel that you're centered. And then bring one hand on the lower abdomen, the other hand on top. Great. And close your eyes. So we start with the breath, right? Breath really is our life force. We don't really do too well if we're not taking in oxygen, taking in air, and slow, deep breathing. We know that it has a myriad of benefits. It balances the nervous system, as we know. It calms the mind. And breathing acts almost like a second pump. If the heart pumps the blood through the body, right, slow, deep breathing has an intimate connection to the heart. It's almost like a second pump, or it is a second pump, where we take in air, and then as we exhale, we get rid of stale air. So it is essentially another pump. And then as we inhale deeply, the diaphragm has a better ability to descend, and that gives the internal organs a gentle massage. So there are numerous ways in which deep breathing, slow deep breathing, benefits our body, our emotional center, and our mind. And then let's open the eyes, and we'll start before we go into knocking on the door of life. We'll start with a little different exercise to open up first the upper spine, then the mid spine, then the lower spine. So it's cactus the arms, so the elbows are bent. And then we're just going to turn over to the left. And as you do, come to the toes of your right foot. If you didn't do that, you can't really rotate that well. So if you come to the toes, you have like a little more mobility here, and then come back to the center, and then over to the right, coming to the toes of the left foot, and then back to the center. So with the arms in this cactus shape, we're giving a little bit more mobility into the space between the shoulder blades, the upper thoracic spine. We're just oscillating back and forth, getting some movement through the upper spine. And then bring the arms down to about, so the palms are facing down to about the lower rib cage area. And the same movement now starts to focus the rotation at the lower thoracic spine. So a little bit lower than we were. And then let the hands drop down a little bit lower. So now and actually bend the knees slightly. And then we're getting the movement more into the lower spine towards the lumbar. It's a good way to somewhat isolate the sections of the spine and getting some rotation through each. And then come to the center. So both feet on the ground. And then we'll go right into knocking on the door of life. So moving from the hips and the waist, knocking across the lower abdomen and the back. And then let's travel up just below the collarbone. And then come all the way to the top of the shoulders. And then come back down below the collarbone. And then back down to the waist. And then let's release the arms, continuing to turn from the hips and the waist. Just let the arms float in the space around you. So feeling the fingertips glide through the air. Taking some slow, deep breaths. And then let's start to slow down all the way. Okay, now let's go into, we'll just do a few rounds of spinal cord breathing, just the standard front and back, flexion and extension. So let's inhale, bring the hands up by the head and look up. So you're stretching the front of the spine and opening the lungs on the inhale. And then on the exhale, curling the spine forward. So you're making like a little C curve. The chin gently tucks down towards the chest. And then the tailbone tucks down. So imagine if you have a tail, that you're stretching it towards the ground so that you're opening up the lower back. And then slowly inhale, look up. And then exhale, curling forward. So as we start, of course, usually with our breath, like slowing the breath down, getting reacquainted with our breath, and training ourselves to breathe more slowly, especially at rest when we're not exerting ourselves or trying to run from danger, right? Our breath should be relatively rhythmic, slow, through the mouth, through the nose. And the more we can practice that, the more it becomes habitualized. So we start with the breath and then we start To move is where the breath goes, energy follows, right? Our breath is also a reflection of our emotional state, and we can train ourselves to breathe more deeply and slowly, right? Energy starts to get recentered. We stop leaking energy unnecessarily. And then when we move in accordance with that, we start to disseminate that energy throughout the body. One more inhale. Let the arms drop down. And then we go into things like chi massage, right? We have all of this potential, right? Our bodies are a type of energy, our emotions are a type of energy, our thoughts, our thinking is a different type of energy. And we're really trying to align everything so that we're thinking clearly. Our emotional center is we're connected and we have emotions. We allow ourselves to feel the emotions, but the emotions don't become like heavy lead. And then we move our bodies to disseminate the energy because the better we feel physically, usually the better we feel emotionally, mentally. So let's do some chi massage. First, in this center of the chest area where we literally knocking across this tissue, starts to release some of that tissue, that the muscles and tendons and ligaments that get really constricted, especially if we have a lot of heavy emotions, when we hold ourselves in certain, habitualized patterns, starting to loosen this area up physically and then emotionally. If you have any injuries here, just be gentle. You can do more of a tapping. And then come over to the front of the right shoulder, and we'll travel down the inside of the arm, past the elbow, past the forearms, the wrist, palms, and fingertips. So we'll be very intentional today. Fingertips coming up the outside of the arm, past the wrist, the elbow, back up to the shoulder. And then we'll do that circuit 2 more times. So going down the inside of the arm. And maybe focus today a little bit more on the joints. So the wrist, maybe a few extra taps here, the elbow, the joints, and then coming back up to the shoulder are where a lot of energy tends to get stuck, right? It's like a hinge of a door. Like let's go down again. We're using these joints in all the directions that they can move in and should move in. Then we're using our bodies to create healthy movement through those joints. Let's come over to the front of the left shoulder. So if we don't move and use those joints, then they tend to get stiff and stuck. And in Chinese medicine, if we loosen up there's major areas, these big joints are where there's a convergence of energy. So it's really important to keep not just fluidity in our muscles and tendons, but in the joints themselves. And I don't remember if we did this 3 times yet, but we'll do it one more time for good measure. And then back up to the chest. Let's drop down to the solar plexus area. Let's go over to the left and go down towards the hip and then back up to the rib cage. And again, and then we'll come over to the right Starting from the rib cage, let's go down towards the hip and then back up and then back down again and back up. And here we're literally knocking on tissue to help free up stored potential. Coming to the center of the belly button area. So we're knocking on these areas to stir up and awaken this energy potential. And then we move and disseminate that. Let's come over to the low back. And then let's go down to the glutes. And then from the glutes, we'll travel down the hamstrings, back of the knees, calves, ankles. And then from the inner ankles, come up the inside, inner knee, back up to the hips. And then we'll do that again. And then for a good measure, a third time. And now let's just stay on these hip points for a moment. You can even bend and straighten your knees. And then let your arms drop down for a moment and close your eyes. Just notice what you feel. Maybe you feel your aliveness a little more. Sensations of blood moving, of energy moving. And then we'll come to a wider stance now. So we'll go into some swimming dragon movements. So you can keep your knees a little less bent if that feels better, or you can bend your knees a little bit more deeply. That will we'll make it a little harder. And then bring your hands to the center of your chest. And then shift the weight over to the right. And as you do, hold on. Now my rights and lefts are all mixed up. Yes, here we go. Okay, shift the weight over to your right. Hands move over to your right, and you turn and look left. Sometimes doing the mirror image is not that easy. And then come back to the center. So hands come back to the center of the chest. And now shifting the weight over to your left, and the hands come over to your left, and then turn and look right. And then back to the center. So there's a weight shift. And the side that we're shifting the weight to, the hands come across horizontally, and then you turn and look left. And then everything comes back to the center and maybe dip down a little bit. And then coming up over to the left, and you turn and look right. So you're just looking in the opposite direction that your body is moving in. And building strength and heat in the legs, the lower body, these big muscles, right? We're helping to strengthen them. The better they're able to work and pump, the better the return blood flow is to the heart. And then we are getting a nice stretch through the mid to upper back, all the way into this front arm and neck. As we come to the center, you can dip down a bit. And as we come over to the side, you're coming up just a little bit. There's a little bit of almost like a horseshoe shape. And then making sure that you're breathing. So you can either inhale to one side, exhale to the other, if that feels good. So this is a great practice for longevity, because we're getting a lot of mobility through these major joints. Come to the center for a moment. You can take the bend out of your knees, building strength and heat and moving these joints. Inhale, separate the hands out and look up. And then exhale, back to the center. And again, inhale and exhale. And then we'll do that one more time. So bending into a gentle squat. Now we'll start this time shifting over to the left and look right. Inhale to the center. And then keep your own pace here, whatever feels good for you. If you want to go a little bit faster, a little bit slower, just think of moving more horizontally, right? We're going more right to left and up and down, but there is a slight dip down and a rising back up. Even the arms, right? We're moving more just in this lateral, horizontal direction. And then we'll come to the center. Inhale, heart to the sky, and exhale. This chest sinks down slightly on the exhale here. And then inhale, look up. Exhale, back down. And one more time, inhale. And exhale. Okay, let's bring the feet back to our neutral, more neutral stance. And then we'll do a little shaking before we go into our flows. So we'll do a variation of shaking. We'll start as we normally do. Shaking the knees, shaking the hands out, the wrists out. And then this time, let's shake the arms up out to the side. So the palms are facing up. This is shaking more into the pericardium and heart channels. So a little bit more for emotional clearing through the heart center. And then bring your hands all the way up and then pause. Come to the balls of your feet. So your hands are together in a prayer. And then as you come down, just let everything go and then go back into our shaking. So shake, shake, shake. Bring the arms up laterally, palms facing up. Coming all the way up. Pausing, come to the balls of the feet, rise up. Think about gathering everything that you want to compost and let it all go. And let's do that one more time. Shaking, bring the arms up. Shoulder height. And then all the way up. Come to the balls of the feet, rise up. And then one more big exhale. So inhale and then let's slow down. Okay, so today we are going into a little bit more of a three treasures flow. I've been doing this a little bit more the past couple of weeks, but we're going to add in a kind of a combination of a three treasures and cloudy hands, which is more of a 5 element fire centric flow. But we'll start with the arms nice and loose, and then the hands just float up. So as they float up to about shoulder height, keep your wrists nice and loose. So your hands are literally just like kind of flopping around here. And then as you exhale, think about dropping the elbows first, and then the hands float down. So you're really dialing into kind of keeping things while we need this structure to keep everything up and in, that we have this, we're in 70% water, right? Think about moving like we are water because we are predominantly water. Inhale, float up, and then exhale, float back down. Inhale. And think about that. Think about how all that fluid now is moving inside of you, right? Delivering nutrients, the liquid component of blood, and that hormones are, they're basically disseminated through the blood. The cerebral spinal fluid, everything that's bathing your spine. And that we're creating these currents internally with these very deliberate movements of our breath, even the currents of our mind, right? The more we all have thoughts, but if incessant thoughts sometimes, right? But if we start to kind of detach from them, so they're not so grippy, right? Then we also have this fluid movement in our consciousness. And then we're creating this physical movement of flow. And now we'll continue and open the flow to the 4 directions. So we're going to inhale, the hands rise up, and then just pull in. So keeping those wrists still nice and loose. They're just coming in towards you like maybe like your little T-Rex. And then exhale, as you push forward, the chest will sink a little bit. And then inhale and pull in, and then exhale down. So think about almost rolling the spine as we inhale up and in, and then exhale as we push, the chest sinks slightly. And then as we draw in again, right, we pull in and that chest opens up a little bit again, and then exhale down. So even in something so simple as this, there is a ripple. And down. So we'll just continue just inhaling up and in, exhaling, pushing forward, inhale, drawing in, and then down. This time we'll continue to the 6th direction. So front, back, up, down, and then we'll go out to the sides. So the next time you draw in, this time we'll exhale out to the sides, and let's just pause here. So keep your arms out to the sides, but maybe bring them slightly in so that even though you're looking forward, open up your peripheral vision. So that's, of our vision, we have this peripheral vision that we can see, even though our gaze is forward, we can see slightly what's happening off to the sides. And the more that we engage our peripheral vision, the more I would say mindful we become. It takes a certain amount of our attention to be able to do that. That really brings us into the present moment, and it expands our vision physically, but also our inner vision. And then inhale, let's bring everything right in front of the forehead. And then exhale down the center line of the body. And then we'll begin again. So inhale up and in. We exhale, push forward. Inhale, drawing in. And then exhale out to the sides again. Again, engaging that peripheral vision. You know, think about just beyond the fingertips, the space. And as we draw in, like you're gathering in, and then consolidating and directing that energy right in front of the forehead into the mind, and then exhale in front of the heart center. And then all the way down to the lower abdomen, and then down. And again, inhale up, drawing in, pushing forward. So we're connecting to the space that's around us, right? Our bodies are physically right here, right? But if we bring our hands right in front of the forehead and close your eyes, we can actually play with, imagine that you are actually looking at yourself from above or from behind, that you're actually looking at yourself in this moment. Exhale the hands down in front of the heart center. So our consciousness is a little more expansive, right? It's not necessarily right here in this body, which is a crazy thing, right? Inhale, come up and in, exhale forward. Inhale in. So when I say the consciousness, it's beyond the thoughts. In some modalities they call it the witness. It's that which is actually noticing the thoughts. And then inhale into the heart, to the mind center, down to the heart center. And then again, inhale up and in. So expanding the perception of who we are physically. If we're constantly taking in energy from our surroundings, which we are, I don't think there's anyone that would debate that the trees produce oxygen that we literally breathe in, and that becomes us out to the sides, and that we exhale carbon dioxide that the trees pull in. So we're constantly exchanging energy. We're exhaling, pushing out, letting go of, and then drawing in from the surroundings. So just kind of realizing and be appreciating that connectedness. And then inhale to the center. This time, drop the hands down in front of the lower abdomen, and let's just pause here in our chi ball. And then from here, we'll go into, so that was a little work with the three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen. Jing, the physical body, Qi, more of our emotional center and our mind. So now we're going to go into, we'll start with embrace the tree. So holding the hands in this kind of circle, fingers pointing towards one another, and drop your right hand down. You're going to turn over to the left, switch the hands. So the bottom hand drops down, faces the floor. The top hand now, the palm is facing your heart. Shift the weight to the back foot, turn over now to the right, and then change the hands. So cloudy hands. And then we start to smooth out those transitions. So just as the hands are changing, start to shift the weight. So you're already initiating the movement in the opposite direction as we shift the hands, just creating a little bit more seamlessness throughout the movement. And so we start here, that top hand is facing the heart center, the bottom hand more connected with our Jing or physical body, and thinking about the connection of the two. As we soothe the heart center, our emotional center, oftentimes our body relaxes. We feel more open, less constricted. Inhaling in one direction, exhale in the other, moving slowly. And as we switch hands here, this time, take that top hand, instead of it being at the level of your heart, bring it up more in front of your forehead. And that bottom hand still is facing down. So now we're thinking more about the connection of our mind or consciousness or spirit in the body. How do we do that? Just think about the awareness that you're placing right now on this moment, right? That is our Shen. We're just witnessing what the body is doing right now. The intention that we're setting and the attention that we're paying, and allowing space, space between thoughts, space between movements, and in clarity of mind. Again, the Shen is without location, meaning it can be, or it is, a little more expansive. And then let's drop down now again. So that top hand is in front of the heart center. And now we'll just lower that hand. So now instead of in front of the heart center, maybe a little bit lower, maybe the solar plexus or even the belly button. So we're just connecting now really with the physical body. As we get lower, feels more dense. And then we'll come back up to the heart center. And the relationship between our physical, our emotional, and our conscious bodies. And then one more time, back up in front of the forehead. In front of our consciousness. And one last time, back to the heart center. And then let's come back to our chi ball one last time. Just holding the space between your palms. Bring them closer together very slowly. And then pulling very slowly. See how slow you can go, pulling your hands apart from one another. And then back in. And then let's drop the arms down. Let's bring the feet close to one another. And then we'll end with centering. So let's inhale, the right arm comes out to the side all the way straight up above, and then exhale back down to the center. And then the left, inhale. And exhale. And again, the right. And the left. And one last time. Inhale. Right. And last one. And let's bring our hands just below the belly button. And let's pause here for another 30 seconds or so. Feeling grounded, but also spacious and light and connected. And when you're ready, you can crack your eyes open. And thanks for joining me, everyone. I hope you
Thank you.
have a really great weekend. For those of you that are in Jersey City, Ariane, I think you had asked me about this. I am going to do the Not Just for Knitting Circle on Monday night.
You are?
So if you're anyone, whoops,
Good.
anyone, I'm just gonna, I think that might be there. Jill, I just, for some reason, I think you're on here twice, and I think one of them is causing a little.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm just gonna mute you though. If you want to chat, you can chat, put it in the question in the chat channel, or I can just text you offline. But so Monday morning, we're not doing Qigong because I'm going to be up here at Riverview Park. But I will be back at night for the Not Just for Knitting, which is basically like come and drink tea. If you want to bring a craft, I'm bringing knitting. Some people just color. Some people come and have tea. Some people just go and play with this one from 6:30 to 8:30.
you want us to register for coming?
You don't have to
So we
register
know.
because I'm still figuring out where I want to have that since we're not doing I got rid of Vigaro. So right now it's just like I'm just gonna tell people about it. And if it doesn't happen, I'll make sure I let people know. It's happening this Monday though.
Woohoo.
Yay.
Can
How can we
Um,
find out more about that?
I'll text you. I mean,
Okay.
it's basically just I created in the beginning of the year. I missed, we used to have like places that you could get yarn from, and they would have like, could go and like knit together or do something together that was more crafty and like we're not on our phones and it's just sort of like to decompress. And so the first Monday of each month from 6:30 to 8:30, I'm calling it Not Just for Knitting, the Not Just for Knitting Circle. And so I have my Huga tea that's going to be nice and toasty now that it's getting cooler. And you can just show up. I was having a registration only because if no one showed up, I didn't want to stick around for 2 hours. Although I was still knitting
And
anyway.
where does it happen?
At the clinic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yep. And it's been nice, and it's been, I think, a really great way for people to decompress and not, there's not a lot of spaces around that we have the opportunity to do that. So I figured it's a small space, as we know, but it's cozy and people really enjoy it. So feel free to come on by. All right, everyone, have a great vacation weekend if you have Monday off, and I will see you next Friday.
Thank you, Erin. That was awesome.
Thank you. Take care.
Good weekend, everyone.
You too.
Bye-bye.